Here's the problem with the question everybody's asking this week. 2 episodes in, the whole internet has settled on the same game. Which one of them is the Manhunter? And the pool is tiny. Rushville has 4 people who actually matter, and they're all one family. Will Macon, his wife Zoe, his son Billy, and Billy's wife Sheriff Carrie Kane. 4 names, 1 dinner table. That's the entire board, and everyone is picking a chair, and I think the game itself is the trap, because the show already told us how these things operate, and we have heard it. Anton says a manhunter can build a new body, wear any species, live inside a community as one of its people for years. Everyone heard that and thought, right, so it's one of these 4. But go back to where these things come from, and I mean the comics, decades before this show existed. And the Manhunters have a very specific method. It isn't hiding, it's hiring. They don't sneak into a town, they recruit one. And once you know that, Will Macon stops being a suspect. He becomes something much worse and much sadder. Let me show you. Start with Anton's account because people are quoting it wrong all over the place this week, and the wrong version matters. There was a time of chaos in the galaxy, and then the Manhunters came. He says they don't know where they came from, only that they were synthetic. They could build new bodies, which meant they could take the form of any species and embed in any society without being detected. And that same ability to build let them invent technology far beyond the limits of the planets they lived on. They were brutal. They were deceptive. They carried out what they called justice. Entire species were lost. 2 words in there nobody's pulling out. The first is build. He uses it twice. These aren't disguises with a body count. They're manufacturers. Wherever they land, technology starts appearing that the locals could never have made. The second is embed, not hide. There's a difference between something crouching in a basement and something that has taken a position inside a community and started operating. And then there's the line before the speech that almost nobody quoted. John says he doesn't know what a manhunter is, and Anton stops and asks him a question. You think the Green Lanterns came first? They didn't. Whatever these things are, they were out there doing this before the Green Lantern Corps existed. Now, the show is deliberately vague about where they came from. Anton says flat out that nobody knows. And I want to flag something here because a lot of write-ups this week have said the Guardians built the Manhunters. That's the comics version. The show has not said it. Hold that thought, because it's going to matter later. Now, the part that reframes everything, and I'll be clear the whole way through that this is comics, not the show. In the comics, the Manhunters end up scattered and hunted, the losing side of something that went badly wrong a long time ago. I'll leave the details there because that's a story worth reading rather than hearing summarized. What matters for us is what the survivors do next. They don't just scatter and hide. They scatter and recruit. The survivors hid on many planets, slowly rebuilding and spread their beliefs to others. They created what the comics literally call the cult of the Manhunters, training living beings to serve as their followers. Ordinary people, indoctrinated, doing the work. And on Earth, that got its own enormous story. A weekly event in the late 80s written by Steve Englehart, built entirely on the idea that the cult had been quietly embedded in human life for decades. I'm not going to spoil who turned out to be a sleeper agent because some of you will want to read it. What matters is the shape of it. They weren't androids in a warehouse. They were people the heroes already knew, family in some cases. Which is the whole trick. You don't put your agent in a bunker, you put them at the dinner table. And the crucial detail is what the recruits believed. They weren't cackling villains. They were true believers. They'd been given a cause and a creed and told they were the ones protecting everybody. The Manhunters have a mantra, it's 4 words, and it's the most quoted line in their entire history. No man escapes the Manhunters. Hold that one too. So keep that in your head and go back to Rushville. What is Will Macon actually? Not a man with a secret. A man with an organization. He has a militia. He has an ideology he'll recite to you unprompted. In episode 1, he tells Hal that Earth is the low-hanging fruit of the galaxy. And he takes it further. The land they're standing on was Kiowa, then Sioux. And across the ocean, the boats were already coming. In episode 2, he says it plainer. The people who walked this land before him got caught flat-footed when the settlers came in and colonized them, and he isn't about to make the same mistake. Whatever you think of the politics, look at the shape of that argument. It's a man who believes an invasion is coming, who believes the people who don't prepare are the ones who get erased, and who has organized his entire life and his neighbors around stopping it. That is not a cover story. That's a conviction, and here's the uncomfortable part. That conviction is exactly, precisely what you would build if you wanted a human being to hunt aliens for you and never ask who was paying. A cult doesn't recruit cynics. It recruits people who already want the thing you need done. You don't have to lie to Will Macon about aliens being dangerous. He got there himself. All you have to do is agree with him and hand him the tools. And there's one more thing about him that only reads as strange once you're looking for it. Macon isn't a man who found a cause. He's a man who was given one and never asked where it came from. Nothing he says is his own information. The threat assessment is his. The history lesson is his. But the hardware, the money, the land, the entire physical basis of the operation, all of it arrived from somewhere else, from someone he's contractually forbidden to name, and he has apparently never once found that odd enough to push on. Think about what that takes. A man this suspicious of outsiders, this convinced the world is full of things wearing false faces, has a single benefactor he's never publicly identified, and he defends the arrangement rather than questioning it. He'll interrogate a stranger at his gate. He won't interrogate the man paying for the gate. Which brings us to the single loudest fact in episode 2, and I don't think it's landed properly with anyone. Hal walks onto that compound and looks at the alien detectors, and here's what he says. He's been all over the galaxy, and he doesn't think he's ever seen technology quite that sophisticated. All over the galaxy, never seen anything like it. That's a 30-year Green Lantern with jurisdiction over an entire sector, telling you that the most advanced hardware he's encountered anywhere is bolted to a high school football field in rural Nebraska. So where did a rancher get it? Macon's answer is that it was donated, a gift from his benefactor, the man who owns the property, and he will not say the name because there's a non-disclosure agreement. Hal, being Hal, doesn't let that sit. He asks whether this is a Kaiser Soze situation, which is a very specific thing to ask. Kaiser Soze is the mastermind who might not exist at all. The name people are too frightened to attach to a face, and Macon's answer is that the benefactor is very real. Now put that next to Anton's description one more time. Manhunters build. Their ability to make new bodies is the same ability that lets them produce technology far beyond what the planet they're living on could ever manage. Somebody in Rushville is producing exactly that, and the man using it can't tell you who it is, and Hal knows it. Later that night, flat on his back in a hospital bed with a hole through his shoulder, he says two things out loud. There's something on that compound. And then, the benefactor's the key. That's not me building a theory. That's the Green Lantern of this sector after a day of being lied to by an entire town, telling you where the answer is. Here's where it stops being a theory about a man and starts being about a body count. 4 aliens are found shot dead on that football field in the first episode. And in episode 2, we find out who they were. They weren't invaders. They were Antan's team, survivors of a genocide on Earth, hunting the machine that did it. Antan's account is that they were exposed and killed, and the show hasn't told us who pulled the trigger. I want to be careful there because it matters. But here's what we do know. Those detectors are wired into that field. The town has the means to identify a non-human the moment one walks in. There's an armed militia in this town organized around exactly that scenario, run by a man who says out loud that he intends to move first. And 4 members of an alien hunting party ended up dead on the ground the detectors are bolted to. So run the arithmetic, and I'll flag the assumption as I go. A manhunter is hiding in Rushville. A hunting party arrives to kill it, and before they get anywhere near it, they're exposed by machinery the benefactor's money paid for and killed. If the people who killed them were locals, then they weren't acting for the manhunter. They'd think they were defending their own town. Either way, the manhunter did not have to lift a finger. That is what a cult is for. That's the entire point of one. You don't hide from the people hunting you. You arrange for somebody else to shoot them, and you let them believe it was their own idea. And it worked so well that Antan, who has been searching for this thing for years, still can't get to it. He has to kidnap a rookie Green Lantern and threaten to level half of western Nebraska. because his own people keep dying at the perimeter. There's a question under all of this, and if I can't answer it, the theory collapses. If this thing can wear any face and pass any scan, why does it need anybody? Because a disguise gets you past a look. It doesn't get you past a jurisdiction. It can't classify a death or decide which questions get asked. A creature hiding alone in a small town is blind, and blind is how you get found. What it needs isn't a better face. It's institutions, and Rushville has them inside one family. Macon runs the militia and the screening, perimeter, and muscle. Billy Macon is a lawyer, the one who represents Hal after the bar fight. Paperwork, contracts, and if you ever needed one, a non-disclosure agreement. The land is held by an owner nobody's permitted to name. Then Carrie, and she's the one worth being careful about. She is not Macon's ally, she says so outright. Standing over Hal's hospital bed after he's shot, her complaint is that every time he storms her father-in-law's compound without letting her do the talking, he's legitimizing the idea that Macon is the seat of power, then the line that settles her position. She's not on Hal's side, she's not on Macon's side. She's on her own, trying to hold the town together. Believe her, I do. But watch what defending that position actually costs. She's guarding her own authority, not investigating his. She warns Hal off taking the bodies to the compound, and when he turns up at the community center asking how Macon knew which aliens to target, she throws him out of the room for disrupting the meeting. Not Macon, Hal. She never once confronts her father-in-law on screen. Every move she makes is aimed at the man asking questions about him, and the net effect is that nobody in Rushville gets to ask them. That's not a hiding place, that's an administration, and none of them has to be in on it. A sheriff defending her jurisdiction, a lawyer doing his job, and a father convinced an invasion is coming produce the same output as a conspiracy. And all of them pass a polygraph because there's nothing to catch. Infiltration means one liar in the room. Recruitment means a room full of honest people pointed in a useful direction, which is why I keep coming back to the hospital. Hal wakes up in a facility with no patients, the only name on the sign-out sheet surrounded by equipment still in the crate. The empty streets have a boring explanation. The whole town was at Macon's meeting, but a meeting doesn't explain a hospital nobody uses. I won't pretend I know what that building is for. What I know is somebody spent serious money equipping it for a town that doesn't need one and never opened the boxes. So ask who in Rushville has money like that. Then ask who isn't allowed to be named. There's one more beat in episode 2, and I think it's the best evidence in the case. Standing on that compound, Hal works out why Macon had invited him to the ranch days earlier. Macon wanted him there to confirm whether the man in custody was actually an alien. He used a green lantern as a testing instrument. So who wanted to know? Macon already had detectors. What Hal could tell him is what the machines couldn't. Not whether the man was alien, but what kind. Whether he was the kind you're looking for, because that man wasn't a manhunter either. Waylon was on Anton's team. Before he detonates in episode 1, he tells Hal that if he'd gone to the trouble of hiding here, it would be for a purpose requiring great discretion and secrecy, a purpose concerning the opposite of peace, war, and one that would need to be kept from a galactic peacekeeping organization. Then he kills himself rather than say another word to a Green Lantern. So on one side of this town, hunters who die rather than explain themselves to the Corps. On the other, a rancher running an identification program funded by someone he can't name, sorting arrivals into categories. One of those groups is being fed information. It isn't the aliens. Now, the obvious objection, why not just say Macon is the Manhunter? He has the tech, the secrets, the compound, the motive. 2 reasons. The first is Anton's own word. The Manhunter lived among his people and engineered their end quietly. That's the method. Embed. Wait, and nobody knows until it's over. Will Macon is the least quiet man in Nebraska. A militia, town meetings, a lecture on colonization inside a minute of meeting a stranger, a man in a tower who shoots trespassers. If a creature whose entire advantage is going unnoticed spent 30 years here and decided to become the loudest man in town, it has badly misunderstood its own biology. The second reason is better. Macon holds up as sincere. He doesn't slip. There's no private moment where the mask drops, and when Hal accuses him of hiding something, he doesn't panic. he gets offended, which is what a man does when he's guilty of something else entirely. That's a human being, which is exactly why he's useful. A recruit who knows he's a recruit can be turned or scared or bought. A recruit who believes he's the hero never has to be managed at all. Will Macon isn't lying to Hal Jordan. That's the point. There's nothing in him to catch. Everything to this point is either on screen or clearly labeled as comics history. This next part is mine, and I want to be straight about where the line is. The show has not said there's a cult. It has not connected Macon's benefactor to the Manhunter. Nobody has confirmed any of this. Here's my read. The benefactor is the Manhunter, or it's working directly for it. It bought the land, it paid for the detectors, it handed a frightened rancher technology a Green Lantern has never seen the like of, and it let him build a private army out of his neighbors, not to protect Rushville, to screen it. Every stranger who arrives gets sorted, and anyone who comes looking gets shot by locals who'll never know what they were actually defending. And one more flag against myself, because this only works if I play it straight. I've told you the show refuses to say where the Manhunters came from. The comics do have an answer, and I'm deliberately not giving it to you here, because I think this show is walking toward its own version, and I'd rather you got it from them. What I'll say is this: Anton didn't tell John the origin either. He asked him a question instead, whether he really thought the Green Lanterns came first. That's a writer holding a card, face down, and holding it deliberately. Whatever's under that card, the show wants you to turn it over on their schedule, so I'll wait. So here's where I've landed. Everyone's playing a 4-card guessing game. Will, Zoe, Billy, Carrie, and I think the show set that table on purpose. It's a small pool, it's easy to argue about, and it keeps you looking at faces. But the thing hunting in Rushville doesn't need a face, it needs a payroll. It has a town that screens arrivals, a militia that kills anyone who comes for it, and a man at the front of it who would pass any lie detector you own because he believes every word. Will Macon isn't hiding the Manhunter, he's working for it, and he'd be genuinely horrified to hear it. Which leaves the question I can't answer yet. There's a man who owns the land under Rushville. He gave a rancher technology no one on this planet could build. He's never been named, never been seen, and Macon insists he is very real. Sooner or later, this show is going to introduce him. And when it does, watch how ordinary he looks. And one last thing to sit with until Sunday. Anton told John that the Manhunter who destroyed his people lived among them as one of them, and engineered their end quietly, not from outside, from inside, with their trust. Then he asked John a question that had nothing to do with aliens at all. He asked whether he'd ever been deceived by someone he loved. That's not a threat. That's a man describing the specific thing that happened to him and telling a Green Lantern what it's going to feel like when he finally works out who in that town has been helping.